Concurla. To ask the Minister for Social Protection for an update on the review of the Reasonable Accommodation Fund, the timeline for the completion and publication of the review, and if she will make a statement on the matter.
Minister.
Thank you, and thank you, Deputy Tully, for raising this matter. My department provides a wide range of income and employment supports to assist job seekers and employees with disabilities and their employers. I am committed to improving targeted employment supports where disabled people are facing additional challenges accessing work. The Reasonable Accommodation Fund is one of these supports, which aims to support the employment of disabled people by providing financial support to help make workplaces more accessible. Under the Comprehensive Employment Strategy, my department committed to undertake a review of the Reasonable Accommodation Fund grants. My department is also reviewing the Disability Awareness Support Scheme at the same time, given their similar target audience. The Reasonable Accommodation Fund grants and the Disability Awareness Support Scheme are both demand-led schemes which have shown consistently low take-up. The Reasonable Accommodation Fund typically has expenditure of around £100,000 per annum, helping fewer than 100 claimants, while the Disability Awareness Support Scheme expenditure is around £11,000 per annum. And I think it is important that we review these schemes, as it is clear that take-up on these grants is very low, and I want to see these grants used more widely and more effectively. And the aim of this review is to improve the effectiveness of the support to employees and employers, identify gaps in provision and improve the application and the payment processes. I expect to publish the review of both grants in the coming weeks. In Budget 2023, I announced an additional €1 million for improvements to the Reasonable Accommodation Fund scheme, which will be informed by the recommendations in the forthcoming review. So I trust this clarifies the matter.
Thank you, Minister, for that clarity. And I do welcome the review because, as you say yourself, the take-up of these schemes is extremely low. And that's very upsetting when you look at Ireland's level of unemployment is very high, yet employment for disabled people is one of the lowest in Europe. We rank lowest with Greece at 32.6%, and when you look at Greece's overall employment rate, it's not anything like Ireland's. So that actually means that we are the worst in Europe for the employment of disabled people. And we have the largest disability employment gap in Europe. The employment rate here for disabled people is 38.6% points lower than people without disabilities. So I'm just wondering if people are aware of the schemes, if employers are aware of the schemes and how they work. I mean, the employee retention grant, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the take-up on that was zero. You know, we need to look at this and see, is there still a stigma attached to employing people with disabilities? Is there enough awareness among the employers of the supports that are there to encourage them to ask disabled people to take up employment?
Well, Deputy, I want to thank you for raising this, because that's what I want to do. I want to get more people to know about it. I want more employers to take it up. I want more employees to benefit from it. The money's there. We have published a consultation, as I said, on the Reasonable Accommodation Fund. We want more people to use it, and there's been a very good response so far. And if I need to make some changes to it, I'll make them, because I genuinely want to see more people with disabilities having the opportunity to go back to work. I want to remove those barriers and help them take up employment, whether it's part-time or and maybe as their confidence grows, they can work longer if it suits them. So we have the wage subsidy scheme as well for employers, and I launched a consultation on that a week ago, and already we have 700 responses. So people are engaged. There are good suggestions coming through, and I'm happy to take those on board. And Deputy, if you have any suggestions on how we can improve it, I'm happy to hear that as well, because what we want to do is help people with disabilities get back into the workplace.
Thank you, Minister. Yeah, I suppose you mentioned there people with disabled people working part-time. A lot of people are working part-time, but they're also in low-paid work as well. And one of the things that comes through in the Disability Committee on a regular basis are the fear of loss of income and supports, secondary supports, if they take up employment. So the secondary supports in particular are the medical card and the free travel pass. And I know they can retain them for a number of years, but I think they need them long term. I mean, a lot of disabled people have many medical conditions, so they need the medical card, and they can't afford to pay for medical costs even after a number of years of employment. The cost of disability report commissioned by your department as well, identified huge costs there for disabled people, and I mean, it's found that 38.1% of disabled people are at risk of poverty and social inclusion in this country, which is higher than anywhere else in Western Europe. So I think all of these things need to be taken into account, and all of the supports looked at. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy. And the cost of the Indicon cost of disability report, among other strategies and commitments, is feeding into the preparation of a straw man reform proposal that I have on disability payments. So work on the straw man is at an advanced stage. All stakeholders and members of the public will be invited to make submissions on some of the strawman proposals. So we're looking at a complete overhaul of the disability allowance payment, because you and I will both accept that there are people who have severe disabilities that prevents them from going to work, and there are those with mild that maybe they'll be able to get back and do some work. So we're going to look at how we can distribute those payments more fairly, because somebody on a mild disability at 220 and somebody with a profound disability on 220, there's a big difference there. So we are looking at that. I'll be publishing the strawman, and I look forward to hearing suggestions on it. But there's a big focus on it all, and we'll continue to work to improve the situation of people who are on disability payments. So.